Hey guys, welcome to How To with Sue. I'm Sue Tranquina, and today I have a quick tutorial for you on how to export video using Adobe Premiere Pro. The first thing I want to call your attention to is that I have this exporting cheat sheet that I distribute to my students. If you are one of my students, then you should have received this in your Google Classroom. And you'll see that I have all of the steps that I'm going to break down for you right here. So let's get started. So the first thing that I like to tell my students to do is to view your whole project. You're going to want to watch that from the beginning to the end. Make sure that you don't make any changes, because once you export, if you'd like to make any changes, you have to go back in, make those changes, and re-export. Go through the whole export process again. Second step is to save. No one likes to get that rainbow wheel of death if you happen to be on your Mac computer. If you're on a PC, no one wants to get that little, I don't know, do they still have the little hourglass? I'm not quite sure. So watch your project, save your project, and then I'm going to recommend to clear any in and out points. So if I was on my timeline here, you'd see that if I marked something in with either I or O, some of my timeline is going to be shaded here. Now, this might be your preference. You might want to have your timeline shaded if you decide that you'd like to export only a certain portion. I could just simply move my cursor over, set an in point and an out point, and then when I exported, it would just export in between that in and out point on my timeline. So that might be beneficial to you. But so many times I see students accidentally export somewhere around a half of a second of a project. They come on up to present and they want to know why their project is so short. You're going to want to clear those in and out points. You can right click or control click and then just simply come on down to clear in and out points. If you have any red lines, sometimes if you add a transition in, let's come up here. So if you add in that video transition, sometimes you'll get that red line over top of it, which means that you need to render your project. You're going to want to make sure that there is no red line above your project or while you're about to start the export. Again, if you are going to render, you can just hit the enter button or return, depending on which computer you're using. And then that will just work through all of the frames of your project and it will slowly start to render it. So at this point, you've watched your video from the beginning. You've saved your project, you've made sure that all in and out points are clear, and then if there's any red line, you've rendered it. So I'm ready to export. So now I'm going to export. You can either use shortcut keys for this, which is what I prefer. Some of my students prefer the menu options. So we're going to come over here to use File, and then we're going to come down to Export and Media. You can see that Export Media shortcut here on an Apple computer is going to be Command M. If I hit Command M, it would bring me right to the export settings, as you see here. I'm going to make sure that down here, my duration right here, it's a pretty big video file, so I'm not going to do the full export for you guys, but it's 2 hours and 3 minutes and 41 seconds and 15 frames. So that's a bulky file here. Under Format, if you're in my class, you're going to go ahead and select H.264 or H.264. It's just a good quality video, not sacrificing any quality, and a little bit less of a headache when it comes to your export in class. So H.264, leaving everything else the same. Go ahead and click on Output Name and put it on your desktop. If your desktop is as messy as mine, you're going to want to make sure that you rename it something that's a little bit more recognizable so that you can find it a little easier. And then you're going to go ahead and hit Save. For video files, it's going to automatically default to MP4 if you're choosing the H.264. And then I'm going to leave everything else the same. You can explore this on your own. If you are one of my students, you're just going to leave everything else the same. And then we're going to go with Export. If you had a lot of stuff that you'd like to export, you might want to opt for Q instead, but we're going to go with Export here. When I click the Export button, it will automatically start the export to my desktop. And this is a really big file, so I'm not going to move forward with the export, but if I did, I would just simply hit the Export button, and then I have to sit around and wait a little while this video exports. What I want to do, though, is cancel out of this and just show you that if I were to hit I and I were to hit O like we did before with that in and out point, then what I could do is I could choose to export this portion, which I actually will follow through on very quickly. File, Export Media, just to show you that now the duration of my clip is 1 minute and 5 frames, a little bit shorter. Again, format H.264, output name, file type MP4, hitting save, leaving everything else the same, and go ahead and hit export right there. So now on my desktop, you'll see that I do have my MP4. I can upload this to YouTube. I can upload this to Vimeo. And it's just a really easy, quick, simple way to export using Adobe Premiere Pro. Thanks for watching, guys.